Stop the start line.
If we're very expedient, we'll get through this in about 25 to 30 minutes. I just want to first do a mic check. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Good. So this is carrying from the mic on me. Yes? No? All right. If you do not currently have your acknowledgement form or your candidate statement printed on it, you should stand up and go to one of the people by the doors who have those forms with them. If you do, and you're seated, perfect. We'll get started. So, before we begin, I just wanted to let you know who I am. My name is Frederick Ding. I'm the Vice Chair for Elections this year, and I'm overseeing the entire elections process. In the back of the room, you see the members of the Nominations and Elections Committee, who will be responsible for also enforcing the rules throughout this process and also helping me out with any questions you might have. Although, you should come to me with any questions and contact me through these means, because if you contact any other member of the body, they will just redirect you to me. I'm sorry, there's something going on, right? Copy. All right. So tonight's agenda, it's very simple. We'll go through a whole bunch of things that are related to the elections process, starting with the calendar, which you should all know by now. Midnight breakfast, which we'll introduce, publicity and the rules surrounding publicity, posters and internet regulations, spending forms, which affect how much money you can spend on your budget, violations of the FEC and how that leads to the hearings, how voting works, and I will also let you know how many people are running for positions that you're competing for. At the very end, we'll have a Q&A session for you to ask any questions that everyone can benefit from. So I ask that you hold any questions until the end unless I prompt you for them. So first of all, this is the elections calendar. Tonight, we are Tuesday, September 10th at 8 p.m. for the campus meeting. Until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., you cannot use any items that you have spent money on, or any items that have monetary value. That's actually on the next slide. I'll talk about monetary in just a second. So I'll run through some of the dates, but the most important thing to remember is that all of this information is in your candidate packet, and it's also available online on the NEC website under the elections page. So Sunday night, there will be midnight breakfast, which I'll talk about in a second. Then voting will be all of next week from Monday at midnight to Friday at 5 p.m. So that's when all of the constituents can go online to pennsylvania.gov.com and click through to a pen and touch like website where they can cast a ballot. Next Friday, between 5 and 7 p.m., you will be responsible for filing your spending forms as well as any charges against other candidates for violations of the FEC. And if there are no violations and there will be no hearing, then we will announce the results Friday at 9 p.m. There's actually a location in Huntsville where you guys can come and we'll actually tell you all the results and present them to you. But if you don't do that, the results always go on our website within 24 hours. And if there is a violation, then we'll hold that hearing on Sunday afternoon at 1 p.m. If you're charged, it's absolutely your responsibility to go there and defend yourself, because if you don't show up, then we'll be forced to make conclusions without you present. So again, like I mentioned, the calendar is available online, and I highly recommend that you add it to your smartphone, iCal, whatever it is you use to manage your time. Now, what is this monetary campaign period? Well, it begins tomorrow at 7 a.m. Before 7 a.m., members of the NEC will actually be scattered across campus to ensure that you don't have posters that are already being displayed. And the reason for this is so that when you actually do go out there at 7 a.m. and plaster the trees, whatever it is, with your posters, it'll give you all an equal starting point. Now, the monetary campaign period goes through the entire elections period, so you can use items of monetary value during this period. That includes anything that you already owned before elections. For example, if you already had a machine that displays your name, you will have to not display that until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. You can also purchase items for your campaign, and you can also use those tomorrow at 7 a.m., but you can't use them tonight. Midnight Breakfast is an event in Houston Hall. You may have seen the Facebook event already. We're starting to invite people. Now this slide says 10 p.m., but it actually will start at 10:30. The reason it says 10 p.m. is that we want you as candidates to show up a little earlier, because the voters will be going there at 10:30. They'll be there to talk to you. It's your chance to interact with them, tell them what your ideas are, present yourself as a candidate they would want to vote for, and also we'll have free food, which is always a nice way to attract people to events. It will be breakfast-type food, pancakes, bacon, those sorts of things, and except that it's happening at night. And this event actually goes past midnight, which is when the polls open online, and it's a way that we can have everybody just, right after they've met you, it's a chance for them to go online and vote. Now, we highly, highly, highly encourage you to go. It's a time that sometimes gets very hectic as all the candidates compete to, put themselves in front of the voters. but we typically get hundreds and hundreds of students who actually come that night, and it's one of the best ways for you to get your name out there for the elections period. I think in the past we've had about 600 or more freshmen show up just for this event, so there's no reason not to come. So now we go to the idea of publicity. How do you campaign? How do you publicize your campaign? Well, here are some of the things that you'll have. So we actually do something for the DP spread. In front of you should be your your form, which contains the candidate statement that you submitted online. We send those statements to the DP, and they will print those in a spread on the Monday of voting, as well as put them online on the DP Candidate Center, which should go online later this week. And it will display your name, your picture, and your candidate statement, and it's an easy way for you to get everyone's name out there all at once. But you also have a chance to put out posters. Obviously, flyering, putting out posters, and going around campus is one of the ways that you can get your word out, and you're also allowed to use social media with some caveats later on. But this last bullet there that says you, make friends, it's because you are actually the best way to get your own name out there. The NEC can do a lot. We can introduce all of you all at once, but it's up to you to make yourself look like the best candidate for people to vote for. Now here's a survey from fall 2008 that shows how people gained awareness about elections and what forms of publicity they found most effective. And as you can see, the highest bar is candidates campaign. That means you guys are better than we are at getting your names out and getting people to vote, which means it's absolutely important for you to go out there, talk to people, go one-to-one, maybe knock on doors, maybe do, stand around a locust when people are going by, and just get your name out. We're telling you this as a matter of courtesy because we want you to have successful and competitive campaigns. By competitive, I don't mean like cutthroat competitive. I just mean like, you're actually putting in effort. So how do you publicize your campaign? By meeting and talking to people. All right, moving on to the next section. This section deals with rules and regulations. And the reason I didn't want you guys to bring a laptop tonight is because you really need to listen to all of these. Fortunately for you, all of these rules are also documented on the NEC website and in the FPC. So if you don't catch what I'm saying tonight, you will always be able to go online to the FPC and check for these specific rules. But I am going to tell you about the basics and the most important details because that, I think, is more helpful in getting you to remember some of these rules. Now, this is a new slide. It's never been here before, but I wanted to explain to you the basis and rationale for the two categories of policies that we have. There are some policies that the NEC enforces for reasons of fairness. So, we don't want you to go around taking down other candidates' posters. And the punishment for things that the NEC enforces is generally disqualification or, rerunning the elections and things like that. On the other hand, there's a category of policies that are enforced by the university or by facilities and residential services or by the house deans of the various college houses. And those the NEC doesn't really take a part in. But, and I'll get to this later on as well, the punishments for those can be more severe than disqualification. Some of those can go on your permanent record if they're referred to the Office of Student Conduct. And essentially the point that I'm making is that you have to follow both sets of rules. What are these sets of rules? Let's start with the NECs. The essentials are, you can only put posters in areas that are freely accessible. So that means that you and your competitors have equal access to them. So this would exclude areas such as fraternity houses, there's very, very few other cases of places that would not be freely accessible, but if there's a place that you have to have like a very exclusive, you have to be a member of a very exclusive society in order to be there, then that is something that we don't want you to be postering on. You also cannot put posters on the windows and balconies of residential rooms. So, we've probably seen things being displayed from like the fifth floor of Harrison or Carnival, whatever. But that is not an acceptable form of postering. You can have it in the stairwells if you talk to the RAs and Gs that are there, but you can't put these on the windows. And third, no tampering with other candidates' materials. I think this should be very self-evident. I don't think I need to explain that anymore. And other highlights that are from the FPC, first, one poster per non-building object. So that means if there's a little bulletin board somewhere, you can put one poster up, but you really don't want to. Why is this thing? Sorry. Yeah. So you can put up one poster for yourself, but you can't put 2, 3, and just plaster your name everywhere. The second is that you cannot have posters that are suspended between two distinct objects. So a very good example of this is hanging a poster between two trees. That is not acceptable. And here are the main university policies. So first of all, keep in mind that each college house has its own rules. We've actually summarized these rules for you on the website. So if you live in the quad, you really want to get to know the rules of the quad, because I know Dean Diggs is very, very hard about some of those policies. And the warehouse team, whom I work for, is also pretty emphatic about not allowing posters under doors that have a sign that says no posters. So university policies also apply to bridges. So the 38th Street Bridge, which you've seen, we've actually disqualified a candidate last year for putting up 6 posters on the 2 sides of the bridge, when here we clearly tell you 1 poster per side of the bridge. That means you can have 2 total, 1 per side. In order to protect our trees from the adhesives and tape and so on, only string may be used to attach posters to trees, but you can use masking tape for the bridge. On bulletin boards, you can use staples. I think a lot of these things are very common sense if you think about what can be maintained over time in the long term. And duct tape is never allowed. The next slide is going to be a whole bunch of don'ts. So, posters are never allowed on trees in the quad. Never allowed on the silver nameplates because alumni are more important than you. Never allowed on the stainless steel pillars because it's really hard to get tape and things off of those. Never allowed on lamppost columns because we don't want campus to look like that. Never allowed on trash cans. I don't know, maybe that has to do with squirrels. Never allowed on benches, and never allowed in college house bathroom stalls. If you think that we can't enforce the bathroom house stalls policy, keep in mind that we won't be the ones enforcing those, and that the house teams and house staff are going to be the ones who will see those and find them. Also banned, spray chalk and chalk in vertical areas. It's extremely difficult to hire manual labor to actually spray hose these down, which is the reason that they are banned. The only exception to this, and I can imagine many of you thinking about it and competing for the spot already, is the stairs in the quad next to the McClellan Hall in Ware. That's the only vertical surface that can be used. Now, again, you're probably thinking, oh, these are rules that will never catch me off. Let me tell you a story of someone who many years ago broke these policies. It wasn't punished by the NEC, but was fined and had to work along X comments. So we had one candidate who went door to door putting handbills under dorm room doors. I think this was in Harrison, and first of all, he was fined a whole bunch of money. He also got an email from the Dean of Harrison telling him that he was required to go to the Office of Student Conduct. Not all house teams will do this, but some definitely will. And OSC told him to A, write a formal apology note, B, present at the elections assembly and apologize, and 3, do 12 hours of community service cleaning up litter. He had to come to school before vacation ended after winter break, and he went around wearing a municipal court jacket as pictured, with ex-convicts who, quote, were missing multiple fingers, had multiple DUIs, or a guy who was explaining to me how to steal from Wawa without getting caught. It was truly a cultural experience that no one ever wants to have. So the long story short, thank you.
You're not allowed to fly under doors?
As I mentioned, those rules differ by college house, and you want to check the rules of those college houses. So in some dorms, like Ware, for example, where I'm an RA, you won't be allowed to do those under doors that have a sign saying don't fly under doors. So long story short, you may not get disqualified, but you really don't want to do it. So I've talked about a lot of rules. Now you're probably asking me, okay, so you're telling me I can't do this, can't do this, can't do this. What should I do? What should I put on my posters? There are 2 main things that you should include. 1, the dates, times, and where to vote, which is midnight on September 16th to 5 p.m. on September 20th, and the website is penn.gov.com. I think that's easy enough to remember. It's very easy to put on a poster. B, be substantive. Talk about concrete things. Don't have your head in the clouds and talk about things that will never happen. Just sound good. Be concrete. Talk about things you will actually do in your position and know what you're running for. Because all the time you have people running for one position promising things that they have no power over. To that point, on this slide, which we will post on the NEC website afterwards, is a list of all the descriptions of the job responsibilities of those running for Class 4. I think it would be a very good idea for you to read this, if not after the fact that now you have your candidates things which are being turned in. But it's a good idea for you to read this to understand what your responsibilities will be, because you don't want to be the candidate that promises something and never gets around to it, because voters sort of do have a short-term memory, but you never want another candidate bringing up all these failed campaign promises that you had that never materialized. Okay, let's play a game. In this game, I'm going to show you photos various campaign posters, which may be violations of rules or not violations of rules. And you guys just shout out at me whether it's acceptable or not acceptable. Why? No posters in college house bathroom stalls. Next. Why?
It's like litter.
Right, this is a poster on the sidewalk. What about this? Not acceptable. No trash cans or lampposts or benches. What about this?
No, these are straight. It's the quad, so no. Oh.
It's in the quad. So under university policy, this wouldn't be allowed. If it's attached with string, you know, you're violating one policy but not breaking the other, but you're still violating the policy. This one.
No.
Chalk is allowed on the stairs. Posters aren't allowed on the stairs.
Well.
What about this one? This is in a fraternity house next to a chapel. Nope. Not freely accessible to all students. This one.
No.
There are 3 of them. No more than 1 poster per candidate per non-building object. This one.
Maybe. Yeah.
That's fine.
It's fine? Good job. It's 1 poster per candidate. You can see Dan's running for something and Carrie's running for something, but it's 1 per candidate. So you can actually have multiple posters on 1 kiosk. It's not that 1 person putting up something will just claim that entire space. This one.
No.
What's wrong with it? Well, it's not duct tape, it's masking tape. But still, only string can be used on
No.
Why?
This too.
Good job. Okay, this one?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Are you doubting yourself now?
Yeah. Let's go.
It's acceptable. 1 poster per candidate, and it's a fixed string. This
No.
is something I think over. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
That's so impressive. How did Dan do that?
It takes months of approval to get that, and even we can't get those up there, so don't do it. How about this? This is on the 38th Street Bridge. No posters on the ground on the bridge. This actually violates both our policies and the university's policies. How about this? There are 3 of them. There's only 2 sides to the bridge, people. Inside joke. Alright. Now for something that will be very near and dear to all of our hearts, Facebook. You may write on the walls of unofficial Facebook groups. In fact, if you go online and look for the Quaker Class of 2017, you'll see something like 2,600 people in this unofficial group. You can post on the wall there. You can also email your class listserv. So for example, every course you're enrolled in, for example, Chem 101 in 2013 fall, all of those actually have listservs, but you may or may not be able to post them. You can only email them if you get permissions from the instructor. What you may not do is send an email to the official Class of 2017 listserv. As you can imagine, if every candidate were to do that and they had the power to do that, everyone would stop reading their Class of 2017 emails, and those sometimes include very important information. Same applies to official school listservs, official school class listservs, and official interdisciplinary and interdisciplinary degree program emails. Finally, you may not write on the walls of official pen groups or pages, and you might think, what's an official pen group or page? I haven't seen an official pen group or page. Well, believe it or not, there's actually things like a Penn Engineering Class of 2017. If you look at those and see that the admin for that group is like Sonia Guak in engineering, she's an administrator for the university, you can't post on those groups. If you check in as a student, it's fair game. So, what's the deal with these postering and publicity rules? They're really serious policies you want to follow. All right, got that? Cool. Moving on. Money. What is your budget? What are you allowed to spend? What do you have to report to us? You have a spending limit of $50. At some other schools like Harvard, I know they have a spending limit of like $300, but for us, we want to equalize socioeconomic differences. We also want it to be fair, so you have a maximum of $50, not over by 1 cent. Just exactly $50 or less. Fewer. Less?
Less.
Okay. Even if you're running for 2 positions, for Class Board and the UA, you have a single maximum limit of $50. And unless you are in serious need of financial aid and you talk to me, you will not be reimbursed for expenses. This comes out of your own pockets. Spending forms, as I've mentioned before when talking about the calendar, are due on Friday, September 20th between 5 and 7 p.m. we'll have a few people on the NEC who are sitting in the NEC office and collecting those forms. And if you fail to turn in this form, even if you spend nothing, and I don't believe you when you say you spent nothing, results in automatic disqualification. We actually, for one of the class 4s, a candidate who was the only person running for a position was disqualified automatically last semester because they didn't turn in their spending form. So, this spending form is the last page of your candidate packet. We included it so that you are familiar with the policies on what to spend on, how to account for those costs, so you don't go over and then figure out that you've already gone over. The instructions are included, so there are fair market value prices for things like printing black and white posters or printing color posters or registering a domain for a website. And for the first time this year, we'll have an optional electronic submission on the NEC website where you filled in your candidate statement, which you can use in only one of two situations. A, if printing posters are the only things you've done and you can account for those at fair market value, or B, your only spending can be documented in high-quality scanned receipts that you can upload to the website. Any other situation, including the case in which you spent $0, you have to come to the NEC office and turn it in. Now the big question, what counts towards my spending limit? Some of you have already emailed me about this, and I wanted to answer this question in front of all of you for the fairness of the proceedings. Anything that's related to your campaign, which is defined in the FPC as something that's intended to solicit votes, must be accounted for on your spending form, except for fixing materials. So tape, glue, staples, string, those don't count. So things like chalk, things like posters, things like paper, things like candy that you give out for free, all of those have to be accounted for. And now let's go through some what ifs. What if I already own chalk or a machine that will display my name and letters? It still counts. What if I don't know how much something I own costs? If you don't have a receipt, go around to the store, get a quote from them in writing about how much it will cost you. I will also accept if you go on Amazon and show me the price on it on Amazon. And the NEC reserves the right to determine the ultimate value. Most important lesson here is don't lose your receipts. If you file a form with your spending form, you have to document all the costs on your receipts. If you don't include something on your spending form because you've lost a receipt and another candidate comes to us and says, I know that person spent like $30 on this really nice big printed poster, but I don't think they accounted for it, you might be at risk of facing an FBC charge. And more than ever, we're starting to make online purchases, and for those, we want you to print out your receipts. If you purchase ads on Facebook, print out your statement, because that shows how much you spent on your ads. If you don't print that out, we'll charge you the same amount that it costs the NEC to target the freshman class, which, believe me, will probably be more than you're actually paying.
Do you have to document if you're just printing out the sheets of paper for the receipt or no?
Sheets of paper. You don't need a receipt because you can account for those at fair market value. More what ifs. What if I print out copies on my own printer or at a free printer on campus, like we mentioned? It still counts. Use the prices that are in the packet. What if I spend nothing on my campaign? You must still turn in a form in person.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Does the printer count as something?
No. Yeah. I don't want to include a $100 printer.
His name?
Like I mentioned, use the fair market value prices for printing.
But how do we tell how much?
It says on the sheet, $7 with a sheet of black and white.
$7 per sheet.
7 cents. You get 40. Isaac.
More what ifs. I really want to go through this in under 30 minutes. What if I can get a deal on some materials? So your uncle worked for like a t-shirt printing shop and you can get a t-shirt at really ridiculous, like 1 cent per t-shirt. No. That deal has to be open to the public, it has to be fair. If you can't get a quote that's available to everyone, you have to use the standard retail prices. Now this last one, I think some of you were laughing at already. What if it was paid for by my parents? I'm not the one spending it. It's okay. Dining dollars, pen cash, anything that's already put on there, like your dining plan, still counts. Those are all like cash equivalents, it counts. This is a big rule, and we call it the Taylor and Kanye rule for various reasons. If you decide to run with other people as a party or like as on a ticket, right? You still are restricted to the single maximum of $50. And I know some of you might have questions about this already. Materials that support both of your campaigns must be accounted for on both of your spending forms. So, for example, if you have a poster that says, vote Kanye, and vote Taylor, both of your names are on it, then you must both account for the cost of that. Any questions about this? No? Let's play a game, part 2. Oh, crap. Well, so you see that according to NEC policy, one poster per candidate and team name on each side of the bridge, this is acceptable. Does anyone see the catch?
It's silver name, it goes
Yeah.
above alumni, who are more important than us.
Yes, you're not as important as the alumni who donate money. Next, what about this one? Yeah, my animations were out of order on that. Whoops.
Plus it's for Taylor, so twice on one.
Yes. Also, Taylor's name appears twice in the bridge. Thank you for catching. Right. Okay. So stick by the rules that regulate how much you can spend. Now, this part that I'm sure we all care about. How are we going to make sure that you all follow the rules? Let me tell you what happens when you break the rules. Anyone, including all of you, and including all of the NEC, may file a charge accusing anyone else of a violation of the FEC. Those charges have to refer to a specific rule that I've talked about tonight, or that's documented in the FEC. And if you're filing a charge against another candidate, you'll be responsible for being essentially the prosecutor for that, and you'll actually come to the hearing and present the charge. If the NEC files the charge, we'll actually have someone who presents the charge on behalf of the NEC. If you are charged with a violation, and we will notify you on Friday night of voting, you must come to the FTC hearing and defend yourself. So here's the timeline. Friday, September 20th, between 5 and 7 p.m., you can come in and submit evidence and document a charge. And at 9 p.m., we will send out notifications if there will be a hearing. And at 1 p.m. on Sunday, September 22nd, we'll have a hearing if there is a hearing.
I have a question. Is there often a hearing?
My freshman year, there were no hearings during the entire year. I would love for that to happen again, but you guys have to help with that. Now, I'm going to introduce you to two people, Charlie and Alec, who happen to be standing next to each other. So Charlie is the public advisor. What that means is that he's sort of on your side. He will provide you with guidance. He will help you navigate the FEC if you're charged with a violation, but he cannot act as your lawyer and talk for you at the meeting. Yeah, he's nodding. Alec Barnes, who's beside him, is the grievance officer. Alec is the bad guy here. No, he's the prosecutor. So he decides what charges the NEC will file against you, and if you guys decide to file a charge against the NEC, then he will defend the NEC against those charges. Now, why follow the rules? Like I talked about, the consequences can be as severe as disqualification or having to repeat the election. And voters don't tend to vote very much when we repeat elections. The NEC is very committed to ensuring that all students are able to partake in fair elections. And remember that we are not, the electoral college or whatever. These people are your peers, they're supposed to be your friends, and you're not going to be going against them and like ripping down their posters. And I really hope that you will abide by all of these policies because I really want to have a free Sunday afternoon, among other things. So again, read your candidate packet and the FPC. Any questions so far?
So, wait, referring to the listserv, you said like if we get permission from an instructor, we can email our course.
Yes.
But you for nursing, you can't email the whole nursing class.
No.
But essentially, like one of our classes is the whole nursing class.
Well, that works out, doesn't it?
That
So it
works
just
out pretty
works out
good.
that way. Oh, okay. I was confused.
All right, let's move on to, I'll take your question at the end. How does voting work? I've talked about this already. I'm emphasizing this again just so you have this written down, hopefully. It's on pennsec.gov.com between Monday and Friday. I'll still look at this. Any dual degree students in the room? Okay. If you are a joint or dual degree student running for a class chair position on class board, members of your home school cannot vote for you if you decide to run in the alternate school. I think it's fairly evident, I've documented on here, and it's the established understanding that you decide to forego votes in your program if you choose the other school. However, we are changing this for the spring, and hopefully it won't be a problem when it comes to running for UA positions in the spring. If you are a part of if this situation applies to you, come see me after the meeting because we have to make sure that you're able to vote for yourself. Okay. So get your classmates to vote. Cool. I'm telling you about the write-in candidacy because this is a potential situation given how many people are running for certain positions. It's possible that someone will write in a candidacy, someone who isn't here tonight or someone who is here tonight and isn't actually an official candidate. They can actually run against you. So if you think you've got it down because you're really great and your opponent isn't that great, think again because there might be someone out there who will get themselves on the ballot. In order to become an official candidate after being written in, they need to have enough votes to exceed the number that you would need to be on the petition. And afterwards, they have to come see us and send a document accepting the rules and accepting that vote. At all times, if you're a write-in candidate or if you want to become a write-in candidate, you are bound by the FEC. So just because your name isn't officially on the ballot doesn't mean that you can plaster all the kiosks with your posters. All right. I'm about to reveal to you how many people are running for your positions. Ready?
Yeah, good job.
Keep
Who's
in
that?
mind,
Raise your
again,
hand, raise your hand.
there's a possibility of write-in, so you might not automatically win.
Yeah, you're on.
Now, most important, declaring your official candidacy. Until you sign that form that's in front of you and present it to us, you are not officially a candidate. Right now, I want all of you to take out those forms, agree to whatever it is you're agreeing to, and sign the bottom. If your candidate statement is printed on it, you have a chance right now to make minor edits. But believe me when I say that we will not go through the trouble of retyping up an entire candidate statement just because you want it to look nicer. We're sending those to the DP tonight, and hopefully they will have it online by tomorrow or the day after. And just make sure that everything there is correct. If you do not have a candidate statement and it says no statement or word count 0, unfortunately, I'm sorry, you won't have the opportunity to submit a candidate statement. And give yourselves a round of applause because for the first time in recent memory, no one submitted a statement that was over 150 words. I'm going to take some of the credit for that because I put in that thing online that tells you how many words you got. All right. This brings us to the end of the scheduled presentation. If you have any questions, please ask right now.
Give us your candidate statement.
I just want to clarify. So we're allowed to purchase materials tonight,
Yes,
but we're not allowed to use them tomorrow.
yes,
Okay.
precisely.
For the midnight dinner slot, or
Midnight
breakfast,
breakfast.
for that slide, I saw people with like cardboard signs around their neck, but that obviously counts towards our
Yes,
monetary.
yes. Everything that you use, here, give me a second. Everything that you use for campaigning counts towards your monetary campaign limit.
What if you just like have an old box, like have your value box? Like from our packages and stuff you get from the recycling room.
If you want to go there, talk to me afterwards. Write it in an email. Write it in an email, and I will get back to you.
Online purchases, shipping and handling and processing all that stuff. Is that
All included.
All
If you take a look on your spending form, it says including shipping, handling, and taxes. Yes.
If I were to purchase a domain tonight,
Yes.
it would exist,
Yes.
but I wouldn't be marketing it to everyone. Would that still count?
Is it in your candidate statement?
Yes.
Don't take the website live until tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Yes. Anyone else? Yes.
What about college house listservs?
There are no official rules surrounding those, but I will bet you that you don't actually have the permissions it takes to email those. Yes.
Are there any rules pertaining to like getting support from different groups on campus?
Oh, yes, that brings me to a very important point. The endorsement period is listed in your candidate packet. What endorsements mean is that you can actually have on-campus groups such as, say, like PQ, the Penn Coalition Consortium of Undergraduate Women. You can actually have these sorts of groups support you for a position. However, this semester we are not actually listing those on the DP website because it always took too long for us to get those online. So they can actually advertise you to their own listservs. They can support you in whatever means they choose, as long as they don't spend any money on you. That would obviously count towards the limited budget you already have. Anyone else? Yes.
So whatever, like, if you get an endorsement from a group and like whatever they do, if they hand out flyers or whatever, that counts towards your budget?
Who has read the FPC? Hopefully everyone. Good. Can anyone tell me what a surrogate is?
Someone that works for you.
Essentially. Whether you know it or not, someone who campaigns on your behalf is effectively, you are responsible for them. So you definitely want to make sure that endorsers don't spend money on you. The official rules will tell them that they can't spend money on you. Yes.
In terms of like, what if you use like a music player or like you're getting votes and like people are, you're using a frisbee, like friends are tossing around a frisbee or you get votes or something. Is that like due to count as frisbee?
So in that particular situation, let me just say for the music player, something that has a value completely separate from what you're doing for campaigning, and which has a value that does not decrease because you use it for campaigning, I won't force you to count it. Yes.
Can you get endorsements from previous class boards?
No. Class boards, the UA, and other members of student government, including SAC, SPEC, SKU, NEC, cannot endorse. Yes.
Can groups endorse more than one candidate?
Yes. And you may also get more endorsements from multiple groups. Yes.
Shocking. Is it possible to claim an area for shocking? If a candidate has already used an area, does it become theirs until the ring washes it away or something?
Essentially what you're asking is, can I erase someone else's chalk to put on my own? And the answer I'm going to say to that is, if you want to risk an FPC hearing because that candidate who was erased will file a charge against you, if you want to take that risk, you can do it. But I'm going to tell you right now, don't do it. Yes.
Fraternities, can they endorse you?
Yes. Just give me 1 second. I want to show you one more thing.